Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Peely, and today I am going to be presenting about preparation for aging, more specifically about early preparation for age. I found that in learning about the different processes for aging, one of the things that I've come across is the idea of thinking about aging before actually becoming an older adult. If anything, the course and its materials has taught me a lot about self-reflection. And where I am in the aging process, and where loved ones and friends and family are in the aging process, and in considering a lot of the materials we've learned, I'm considering how I could best help the clients and the population that I work with over here in Los Angeles, California. And so I've kind of set up this presentation with the intention of helping different counselors and therapists just start talking about aging. It seems like that's something that is often avoided, and so when we're in our older age, it's a surprise that we're not as prepared as we thought we were, or we wish we were. So this presentation is for those counselors and those therapists that may be working with middle-aged adults or adults that are starting to enter older age and wanting that kind of early preparation, just kind of getting them just to talk about age. Okay, so today, a little bit of an outline, an agenda for the presentation is just kind of touching on talking about age, a little bit of a video clip that gets us kind of sparked ideas about aging and maybe why we're not talking about it yet, especially as a younger or middle-aged adult. That may classify as someone that's 30s, 40s, even 50s. A lot of times we don't, especially nowadays, might not think about older age as far as 60s, 70s, and beyond. I'm going to be opening up an opportunity for reflection, also talking about some of the discussions I've had just recently, trying to get information from people around me, from clients I've been working with, to see what are some of those common fears that people have about aging and why aren't we talking about it. We'll also be talking about strategies to help prepare those middle-aged adults and people that are aging, which is everybody, so that fear of aging can be reduced just a little bit. I'll be giving some specific examples of interventions and preparation strategies that can be geared specifically toward aging, but also just kind of future planning and goal setting. And then we're going to talk about what are those next steps for helping your clients be prepared, just for getting older and planning for the future. What can we do as counselors and therapists to just be ready to help our families and help our clients, whoever we are working with in the different populations in our field. Okay, so let's see if I can get this to work. Again, in just prepping this presentation, my main thought is just wanting to spark interest in and thinking about older age, getting older, and how can we help our clients to start thinking about it. I've worked with a variety of people in traumatic situations. I had a lot of clients who've experienced domestic violence, other trauma, open cases with social services, and needing to help their families. And a lot of times energy is focused on right now, how do we problem solve, stay solution focused, and get out of our current situation. But when asking about the future and what families or parents see for themselves and their children years or decades from now, that's honestly one of those conversations that doesn't really go anywhere, because thinking about old age is not something that, especially clients in the populations I work with in Los Angeles, are thinking about. They're worried about what is going on right now. How do I get through today? How do I survive, this next week? And do not feel as though they need to worry or have time to worry about next year, 10 years, 20 years from now. So again, just to get this ball rolling and start talking to our clients about future. The idea is that thinking about old age doesn't have to be reserved for the old. And a lot of times we don't really think about it until we see someone around us getting old, and we need to start planning for that person to age successfully, or until we are starting to get older ourselves. So again, everything that we're going to be talking about today is just to talk about age. Another point to kind of take in consideration is that as years go by, perspective on aging changes. When we were kids, when I was a kid, aging seemed so far away. It seemed very distant, not something that I really was thinking about. Of course, as I get older, even though I'm still considered a young adult, my perspective on aging is shifting. Comes with some fears, but also comes with some, I'm a little bit more comfortable with the idea of getting older as more resources are being brought to my attention as a counselor. So being able to provide these resources to people in their young adult or middle age might also help to ease the minds of those who are looking ahead and possibly worrying or fearing aging and not wanting to think about it. So I thought this clip was a really good, just again, spark to talking about aging. So I'm going to play it. We'll see if this works the way I want it to. Hold on. Let me see if I can oops, I'm sorry. Let me kind of just open up this link because it doesn't seem to work the way I want it to. Okay. There we go. Technical difficulties. It's a really short video. I just can't play it. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me see if I can get this back. Okay, here's my video. Sorry. All right, so now we'll get okay. So again, that video is just again to kind of spark our minds as counselors and therapists so that we have ideas of maybe what we can do to start talking about aging with clients who it might be relevant for. This idea that we're constantly preparing for the very next step in our lives. what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week, perhaps what's going to happen, in terms of preparing for relationships, preparing for marriage, preparing for kids. But we don't often prepare for 10, 20, 30 years from now, the last 20, 30 years of our lives. That may or may not be a video that could be used when talking to larger groups of clients. I know when I've talked to clients, showing videos, even mini clips like that can often be a great conversation starter. So I just thought it was a very useful clip. Again, something to kind of trigger that initial conversation and discussion about aging, and maybe spark answers to those questions. Why aren't we talking about aging? Why aren't we preparing for getting older? What's keeping us from going step by step, or from what's keeping us only going step by step and not looking 4, 5, 6 steps from that. Okay, so one of the strategies that I find most helpful, again, in sparking conversation, is really just asking a simple question. If we're working with clients who have fears about something, or working with clients who are concerned about their future, simply asking, what is it that you have fears about, or what is it that concerns you about prepping for age? Those can be the best reflection activities that often spark a conversation and then lead into specific interventions relevant to that specific client or group, depending on what their answers are. Answers are going to range, from different concerns to different fears, and what you might do with somebody who's more concerned about health-related issues in the future in terms of preparation might be different than somebody who's concerned about losing their loved ones, or memory loss, or financial burdens, planning, and things like that. Just to kind of test this out, I actually started asking people around me, people at work, other clients I work with, what is it that kind of scares you about aging? I was kind of curious what people would say, letting them know I'm kind of working on putting something together. And most of the people, they range from 30 to 50, but most of the people that just asking the open-ended question, what scares you about aging, had an answer, and they didn't have to think about it very much, very long. It was, most of the answers I got had to do with health, health decline, getting sick, having a chronic or long-term illness, and then followed very closely by losing their memory and not remembering things, family members, past experiences, childhood memories, young adult memories, things like that. So that kind of open-ended question can really make the difference in working with clients or working with different groups to open up that discussion and see really what is stopping us from thinking about age, what's stopping us from really planning for our future, beyond, like I said, what the video kind of mentioned, that next step. What stops us from preparing more long-term for the last, couple of decades of our lives? And some of the articles, research materials that I've come across, I kind of pulled some of this together. The common fears of getting old, of getting older or aging, are pretty, I think we're well aware as professionals what that might be. But once we're kind of able to pinpoint and identify what is that fear for the specific client we're working with, we can then focus our work, our interventions, the resources we gather on what is actually concerning those clients. The major ones, again, are loss, overall just loss, losing your independence, not being able to do things on your own, needing help, getting to doctor appointments, remembering things, time management, stuff like that. General loss of memory, kind of mentioned before, and as we learn, again in this field, as we get older, our memory and our cognitive abilities decline, with older age. fear of insecurity and not feeling safe. So as someone gets older, living alone, not having resources, not having support, what's going to happen if they're ill or sick, or they fall, hurt themselves, those kinds of things, which then leads into fears of getting hurt. General decline in health, which is natural for everybody, but doesn't necessarily have to be a given with specific age. So again, that could be something that's addressed in terms of preparation if that's what's identified. Lack of financial stability, especially without preparation, which we'll kind of touch on. Inability to maintain daily routine, so having to eat differently, not being able to drive, those kinds of things. Maybe not being able to work or learn the way that we used to, if we're getting older. Feeling a sense of a loss of dignity. Again, having to count on somebody else to do something for you, to do something you used to be able to do every day by yourself, might make you feel like less of a person. And then another common is the loss of your loved ones. As you're getting older, so is everyone around you. And especially if you're good at aging successfully, that might mean that people around you, are moving on or passing away before you do. So I'm really working with your clients to, again, understand any of these. Why are we afraid of getting old, and what's maybe keeping us from really planning and looking at that? Because the more we embrace these things, the more realistic these fears and concerns are. And just from experience, if I'm afraid of something, I'm not necessarily going to want to tackle that or plan for it. It seems to be a human instinct to want to avoid it. Sorry, I'm smoking myself around. Okay, I apologize for my technical difficulties here. So just kind of considering the different things that a person might identify as my fear, something that's keeping me from wanting to talk about my future. And when I work with clients and they want to talk about how to get through today or tomorrow, and I'm asking, how are you going to, sustain what you're learning now into your future, into your older age? Again, that's a topic that's easily avoidable because they're not thinking about it. They're so far away in the future. They don't have the easy resources or awareness of what is there or what they can do to prepare. So some of these ideas are really simple things, not anything that's going to take a lot of time for a client to do, not anything that's going to ask them, to dig super deep or worry too much, but really just, again, get that ball rolling, get their minds thinking, and start looking at what will it take for me to just kind of, age more successfully, or what do I want in my future? What do I want my older age, my last 10, 20 years to look like after, my kids are adults, after I've been married for a long time, after I can no longer work? What do I want that to look like? My favorite intervention with any kind of client, no matter what the reason, is that SMART goal setting. And I will show an example of a resource I found with SMART goal setting specifically for older and aging adults, really helping your client learn how to not only set short-term goals, but also long-term goals, and long-term goals that are really realistic, more specific than I want to be healthy when I'm 70, but what does healthy when you're 70 look like? What are you going to do now to continue to be healthy when you're 70? Who's going to help you be healthy when you're 70? Those kinds of things really need to be addressed when identifying any goal, and specifically goals that are going to be that far in the future. So those preparation strategies, like I said, SMART goal setting can really be the first step for any of the next little strategies that can be used as a therapist or client working with, therapist or counselor working with a client who might be prepping for or thinking about prepping for older age. Exercise and diet planning. Again, it is beneficial to take the client's lead on what it is that's worrying or concerning them, or, you know, making it easy for them to avoid future and preparation for older age. If it was identified in that kind of reflective exercise, you know, what's your fear, and it comes up they're afraid of, you know, their decline in health, or illness and chronic conditions, things like that, then it might be that exercise or diet planning could be something that you can assist them with. Just in terms of working with clients, it's not necessarily telling them how to exercise or what they should be eating, but helping them determine what it is that they think would lead toward whatever goals they're setting for being healthy in the future. More of that psychoeducation. What are the effects, you know, of your diet now, what you're eating now, and what you're doing now in terms of physical activity? How could that impact your overall health long term? It would be easy for me to say that majority of the clients that I've worked with, and asking them for to plan more long term, a lot of times, especially with clients who have specific insecurities, have experiences with trauma, like domestic violence. The clients who've experienced domestic violence I work with, or have open cases of ACS, one of the natural things that it seems like they go is back to their health, wanting to eat better, work out, feel better about themselves. And I really think that's tied a lot into, again, self-esteem, comfort with oneself, and can be a starting point, I guess, to some of the rest of the things that help us feel confident. Okay, if I'm feeling good about myself, then I want to live longer, and I want to, if I live longer, I want to continue feeling good about myself. So it kind of plays into each other. So that exercise and diet planning, again, depending on the counselor or therapist scope. So some people are more trained more or certified to actually work more closely with diet and exercise plans. Have had the opportunity to become a health and nutrition specialist. So I have a certification in working with clients who identify that as something that they want as a long-term goal. So it would be best practice, you know, as a counselor or therapist, to make sure that whatever it is you're working on with the client, it is within your scope to do. However, like I said, without maybe telling them or coaching them to do something, you can help your clients decide what it is that they think is best for them, and really don't have to have much input other than the facts of the psychoeducation that you're providing. Another piece, again, of preparation strategies will have to do with that financial planning, especially now where Social Security and, you know, retirement are not a guarantee, and a lot of your future planning needs to start, you know, now, or 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, as soon as you get that first job as part of your career, making clients aware of how to do that. I'm surprised sometimes when I'm working with somebody in their 30s or 40s who hasn't actually sat down and created a budget, or determined, you know, what it is that they need to save in order to have anything in their future. And that just topic alone can be very, very scary, and make somebody want to avoid the topic of planning for the future or aging at all. Again, when talking about something this specific, we want to be careful as counselors and therapists to get into topics that are not within our scope. Unless we're a specific financial planner, we probably, again, wouldn't be giving financial advice, but helping them set goals for their financial plans, or helping them determine how to access resources to be more strategic in financial planning. Those are things to assist your client. So those are strategies that might help minimize those fears of aging, or help them want to prepare more for getting older if they know how to access those resources, or where to go, or what to even think about when they're thinking about finances and future retirement. Is that something they even want to worry about? That kind of thing. Something else that can be very valuable is teaching or assisting clients in learning how to look for resources, how to access them, where to go for certain types of resources. Your nearby community resource centers, community centers, websites that might have more information, contact numbers, things like that. A lot of clients that I've worked with that we might come across, middle-aged to older adults, don't often know how to look for it and don't realize how easy it is, especially with technology developing the way it is. One of my favorite things to do with clients is to go research hunting. Resource hunting, sorry. So I will see them one session and encourage them to come back with 3 to 5 resources that they might see themselves using for whatever topic we're talking about. So in this case, we're talking about preparation for age. Have them do a resource hunt, and I give them, maybe one website to start with or an organization to call, and then have them come back, and then with their 3 to 5, I'll match 3 to 5 and give them a couple other resources. And then from there, we're expanding their resource pool. We're giving them a wide variety of places that they can go, people that they can contact. And again, it's not necessarily something they're going to use right now. If they're 30, 40, 50 years old, they might not be looking for specific resources for their 60s, 70s, or 80s yet, but it could just minimize that fear a little bit, make somebody feel just a tad bit more comfortable about getting older every day when they have this list already of places they can go and people they can turn to when they're getting older and really getting into that phase where they need to sit down and plan specific things about old age or specific elements about old age. Okay, so sorry. The last topic, or I guess category of preparation strategies really has to do with social support. In I think many of the chapters and materials that I've come across regarding aging specifically kind of always came back and pointed to social support and social connection, and how maintaining social relationships that are full of support, positive support, can really make the difference between successful aging and that kind of overall decline in aging. So helping clients assess where they get their support from, creating what their support looks like and what their network looks like. Who do they go for, what? Who helps them financially? Who helps provide emotional support? What organizations or resources do they have that they can go to for certain things? And really categorizing each one can, again, help to minimize those fears of the future and also help to keep somebody healthier overall, physically and emotionally, because they have the support. They have people that are there helping them get through the aging process. So again, each of these things are kind of those broader categories of strategies that can help, or topics that can help break the ice with talking about aging. Okay, so I have found a specific, this is a outline for a SMART goal worksheet. An outline of what you can do with middle-aged adults and older adults, and how to fill that in. So let me open that. Okay, so this explains how to set SMART goals, what goal setting helps do in terms of clarifying values and making decisions. Again, starting with those open-ended questions. What are they looking to set in terms of goals or long-term goals for the future? Listening and helping to summarize, what it is that you determined from those open-ended discussions. So in terms of SMART goals, just in case as counselors or therapists we haven't heard of SMART goals yet, SMART stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-limited. So your able to identify specifically what it is that you're wanting to meet in terms of a goal. You're able to measure the progress. It's something that you can actually do in terms of taking action. It's something you can realistically do in terms of what it is you're setting and the time span that you're setting, or time frame that you're setting it in. And for the time, again, it's also realistic. So I'm just thinking of a goal. If you're saying someone's trying to eat healthy or lose weight, you're giving yourself a realistic time. So it's not, I'm setting, I want to lose 10 pounds in 2 days. What's a realistic way or time frame for whatever goal you're setting? And I've just used weight loss as an easy goal to come up with, but you wouldn't necessarily be setting those as goals for your client in this situation. So this is just an example of the questions that you'll ask to get some of those answers, and helping the client answering those themselves. We keep going. This is actually a step-by-step what it would look like to set certain goals for clients who are entering older age or thinking about older age. Someone identifying as wanting to be socially active or remain socially active, and then those SMART elements to it, remaining physically active, keep regarding how you're thinking, changing how you think, and taking care of mental health. So those are examples. So I thought this was a nice resource. You don't necessarily have to do this word for word or step by step, but I've created my own kind of outlines depending on what groups or clients I'm working with in terms of setting these goals. So that is just an example of what can be done to we're just talking about aging. We're just thinking about it, breaking that ice. Not anything super serious necessarily right now, especially depending on the age of your client, but something to just think about, because like I said, it's really easy to avoid when clients are seeking counseling for certain situations and not really thinking about future or long-term future. Okay, so let me get back to my PowerPoint. Okay. So again, for the purposes of this presentation, I wanted to keep it very simple. Wanted to talk about the different things that can help us talk about aging with our clients, really identify maybe what's keeping that from being a topic. I've heard almost everything in this individual sessions and group sessions with my hundreds of clients that I've worked with in the past 5 or 6 years, but I don't know if I've ever really talked about anything, beyond middle age, 10, 20 years from now. It's always fairly just in the moment, which I think more long-term planning could be that step in helping clients remain overall generally physically, mentally healthier, because they have this plan to do that and to age more healthily and more successfully. And so in terms of next steps, so maybe as counselors and therapists, we've tried a couple of these strategies, and again, just to break that ice, just to bring up the idea of aging. So what can we do next, or what do we encourage our clients to do next, especially because that might not be the initial reason for being, receiving services. So assisting your clients in exploring and expanding their sources of support. So we talked about ways to access resources, where to find those resources, how to assess their current sources of support, relationships, the healthiness, unhealthiness of those, the positive or negative support that they receive, and how to increase that positive support. Where can we get more positive support? Is it going to groups? Is it going to different classes? Is it, joining a club at a community center, things like that. So expanding those positive sources of support. Working with clients, and it's good to follow up and reestablish goals, at different benchmarks, and encouraging clients, even beyond working with you as a therapist or a counselor, to continue establishing those goals. It can be helpful to check in on goals all the time, and then that allows somebody, as they go through different phases of their life, to reestablish, okay, I'm 20, what do I want when I'm 30? I'm 30, what do I want when I'm 50? Now I'm 50, what? So you're continuously doing that. And maybe not even just having goals for the next decade, but, I'm 30, what do I want for my 40, 50, 60s? What do I see in each decade? And then changing that as you get older. As a counselor and therapist, just modeling, talking about aging, opening that up for discussion, talking about the future. Maybe you don't want to call it aging, but very long-term future planning. The more, as a therapist, the more resources and information you're able to provide, the easier it is for clients to start talking about it. And then those clients being comfortable and knowing where to go and what to do can then model that for their own families, their friends, their children who are also going to be aging. And then as professionals, being prepared to offer resources. So I kind of talked about what I like to do in terms of having them do a hunt and then matching their resources with my own, but really knowing what resources exist around us. And I think unless you're specifically working with older adults or geriatric populations, we're not always aware of what those resources are. I remember the first time I had to make an elder adult abuse report and called Adult Protective Services, and nobody in my organization knew how to do that because no one had to do it yet. It's not a population that that a lot of people know about, or a specialization in terms of the field that a lot of people are aware of resources for. So the last thing I'll do is just going to show some of the resources that I am aware of or I found in my county, so Los Angeles, over here in California. And I would encourage, as counselors and therapists and professionals in the field, even if you're not always working with older adults or will never work with older adults, just being aware, because you never know if your clients might need those resources for their family. Maybe their parents are aging or their loved ones are aging and they want to know how to help them. So just to kind of show these, get these to open. Let me just show them on here. So, we have that one. So lacity.org, aging.lacity.org. There's actually a Department of Aging in Los Angeles that I've helped refer people to. It talks about programs and services in the area, different projects that work with the older adult population. Different resources and services that exist in the nearby community. So these are things that might help in terms of sparking interest or sparking resources. You provide a large resource like this, and then there's specific resources even within the resource, or resource links within the resource that I'm providing. Another one is we have really great county libraries over here, which are full of resources and knowledge. So that resource is something I give, and they actually have a specific resource page for seniors with different information about elder abuse, Medicare, benefits, AARP. So those are a couple of the resources that I equip myself with as a professional, and it might benefit you as a professional to equip yourself with different resources for those that are relevant in your area, because I'm aware we're all across the country, so we all have different resources. Okay, and then I think, sorry, I have it back at the beginning. My references at the end. Any questions that come up, please do not hesitate to contact me. I appreciate your time. And again, like I said, the goal is just to start talking about aging. It's not only for older adults, it's for everybody. We start thinking about what we want to do as adults and our kids. We can start thinking about what we want to do as older adults while we're still young. Again, any questions, please let me know, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.